Okay, and Morning. My name is Bogdan Oldakowski. I'm the CEO of the company Actia Forum, and I have a pleasure to welcome you at our next Transport Week webinar. Last time we met in March this year when we talked about container market. Now is a time to focus more on ro-ro and ferry market. And today we have two sessions. The first session will be dedicated more to the market itself and also to latest development in new fleets, new investment and challenges in that sector, ro-ro and ferry sector in the Baltic Sea region. After the break, we will focus more on new vessels, new technologies, and also new challenges. So we will have two sessions. We will finish today's seminar in afternoon. Well, maybe it's important to say that there is a possibility to ask questions. So if you are following us on YouTube, there is always a chance to ask questions on chat, and those questions will be transferred to moderator. So I hope the panelists and also the speakers would have a chance to answer these questions. Without further delay, I would like to invite our moderator for morning session. I would like to invite Dr. Dorota Książkiewicz. Dorota is a member of the team of the Department of Transport Policy and Economic Integration in University of Gdańsk, and we had a very good cooperation with Dorota. Of course, Dorota has a very long experience in professional academic research, but which is important, she has also a very good and wide experience when it comes to business consulting. So Dorota, I would say, has a common language when talking with businessmen from maritime sector, which is, I would say, not always the case for academic persons. So Dorota, I hope you are with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Bogdan, for this nice introduction. It is always a pleasure to join any meeting with you, especially the Transport Week meetings. So it is also a pleasure for me today to be a moderator of the first session. So I'm completely ready to start the first session.
Okay.
If it's okay.
Like you see your background and the chairs are full of students, I would say. So I think the university are still online, or
yes.
have your
Yes.
students in the classes or not?
Yes, we are still online until the end of this semester, but at this very moment, the students are preparing for examination sessions, so it is perfectly justified, this empty hall outside here, because they are actually home and learning at this moment, at this point, I guess. I hope so.
Yes, I remember that time also. Yeah, well, it was quite a long time ago. Dorota, so please lead our session until the break, and well, good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start our first session that is dedicated to the ro-ro and ferry sector in the Baltic Sea region. We have very entitled participants today. We will start with two presentations and then follow with a discussion panel. And of course, everyone is free to ask questions. We have a chat box for this purpose, so please don't hesitate if you have any questions. Our participants today would be starting with those presenting first. Monika Rozmarynowska-Mrozek, consulting projects leader from Actia Forum. The second of our speakers would be Mr. Jörgen Nilsson, the CEO of Port of Trelleborg. It's good to see you. I can see you here, yes. In the discussion panel sections, we will have more guests. Let me just mention them. Mrs. Anita Schroeder-Piernicka, Commercial Director of Szczecin and Świnoujście Seaports Authority. Mr. Mateusz Frankiewicz, the Project Leader of Port of Gdynia. Mr. Tobias Benke, Head of International Services, European Cargo Logistics. And Mr. Rafał Kwapisz, the Managing Director of Finnlines Poland. So we have a group of very humble speakers and very nice speakers here. So the discussion ahead of us is going to be interesting, I think. Okay, so let me start with the introduction of the first presentation. I would like to introduce Mrs. Monika Rozmarynowska-Mrozek, who will tell us about the ro-ro and ferry market, about the last developments on this market, and new fleets and new investments and challenges that we are facing at this moment. Yes, Mrs. Rozmarynowska-Mrozek, please. If
yes.
I can.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Nice to see you. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. Okay, I hope it's visible. Yes. Okay.
Yes, it is visible. Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone, once again. Today I will show a couple of slides about ro-ro and ferry market on the Baltic. So let's start with some statistics. Last year, marked by COVID-19 pandemic, was specific for port sector. However, it was probably not so difficult as most of us assumed at the beginning of the outbreak of the pandemic. In the case of ferry and ro-ro cargo, there was a moderate decrease. Almost in all Baltic countries, there were drops. But also two countries marked growth. It was Lithuania and Russia. And all the Baltic countries together noted a 3.5% decrease in ferry and ro-ro cargo turnover. In most of Baltic largest ferry and ro-ro ports, drops were at the level of several percent. The largest drop was visible in Lübeck-Travemünde. On the other hand, three ports noted increase in volumes. It was a slight increase in Trelleborg, in Tallinn, and in Klaipėda. So, as we could see on the previous slides, the ro-ro cargo traffic didn't suffer much due to pandemic, but it was the passenger traffic that was affected significantly last year. The introduced restrictions and impositions of quarantine on travelers due to a pandemic resulted in significant reduction in the number of passengers traveling on ferries. And almost in all countries, the passenger traffic was reduced by over 50%. Only in Poland and in Lithuania, the drop was not so high. It was at the level of over 20%. Generally, all ports that handle the passenger traffic marked large decreases in this sector of operation. In many cases, the drops were at or even exceeded 50%. This slide presents top 10 Baltic passenger ports and their results in last year. So as we can see, large drops in most cases. What will look like this year, to 2021? What is the perspective for 2021? Referring to Ro-Ro and ferry cargo, perspectives are promising. Here are some results for several main Ro-Ro and ferry ports on the Baltic. And as we can see, in all these ports, we can see a large increases in Ro-Ro and ferry cargo turnover in first quarter 2021 versus first quarter 2020. So the perspectives are promising in the case of the Ro-Ro cargo. However, the situation probably is not so optimistic in the case of passenger traffic, because still the number of passengers are not as high as they were before the pandemic. However, probably this year for passenger traffic will be a little bit better than the last year. Okay, so this was statistics, but now I want to move on and say a little bit about Ro-Ro and ferry fleet on the Baltic, and also about investments in ports in this sector. In our recent reports, we have made some analysis of size of Ro-Ro and Ro-Pax fleets on the Baltic. And as we can see on the slide, parameters of Ro-Ro and ferry, I mean these main parameters such as gross tonnage, length and width, increased significantly during past several decades. And it is especially visible in the case of Ro-Ro vessels. Here, these charts on the bottom of the slides. So the basic parameters, as we can see, grew. On this picture, on the other hand, compares the basic parameters of Ro-Ro and ferry vessels in 70s of the last century and in 20s in this century. And as we can see, the numbers, the gross tonnage, length and width, the size of the vessels increased significantly. Here we can see the Ro-Pax and Ro-Ro vessels order book of the Baltic operators. And here again, we can see that this order book contains large vessels, especially this Ro-Ro vessels order book. So the new vessels that will join in the next several years the Baltic fleet will be the large, quite large vessels. Here are some pictures, some visualizations of ordered vessels by Baltic operators. Here we have some new RoPax vessels ordered by Finnline's Fjord Line, Molslinjen, or Tallinn Group. Here, on the other hand, some visualization of new orders of RoRo vessels by Finnline's TT Line, Wallenius, and DFDS. So just to show some pictures. And now, when fleet is growing, the ports must follow. So now I would like to present some examples of investments in ports connected with RoRo and ferry infrastructure. First of all, some examples from Poland. Port of Gdynia is now at the finish of the new public ferry terminal at the Polskie Quay. This new ferry terminal will be able to serve the largest RoRo ferry vessels up to 245 meters. Other example is the investment that is being carried out by Port of Świnoujście. Port of Świnoujście is now modernizing its ferry terminal, and after that it will be adapted to handle intermodal transport, and also to handle the new ferry berth will be able to accommodate the ferries or passenger vessels of a length up to 270 meters. And now some examples from Sweden. Port of Ystad, now it's at the end of the big investment which covered construction of two new ferry berths, which will be able to serve ferries up to 240 meters. Also, Port of Trelleborg, it's now realizing port vision up to 2025. And Port of Trelleborg is now the phase of constructing 4 new ferry berths. Okay. Also, Port of Karlshamn is now expanding the ferry RoRo terminal. The project includes new RoRo berths and widening of existing one. And also this whole investment will enable to accommodate the vessels up to 270 meters in length. And also Port of Göteborg is investing in new infrastructure. Port infrastructure, which will be dedicated to both RoRo and container traffic. Okay, so now, what will influence the further development of RoRo and ferry transport in Baltic Sea region? First of all, the development of trade between countries in the region and between Central European countries and Scandinavian countries and Finland, because the cargo is the trade, so the trade must develop, so we could develop the transport. Also, the development of port infrastructure, as we could see, there are several large investments on the Baltic in the RoRo and ferry infrastructure. Development of fleet, larger vessels are being constructed, so there will be a larger possibilities of transport. Frequency of rural ferry connections, which means the higher frequency on the specific routes. This makes a larger possibility of transport and more attractive route. But also what will influence the development of rural ferry transport, the competitiveness of container short sea shipping, sorry. Because as we can see, this short sea shipping of container short sea shipping is developing. However, it can be noticed that this connection are more longer distances than RoRo and ferries, sorry, because RoRo also are on the larger distances. Also, competitiveness of road transport. For some, on some routes, the more competitive is the road transport. For example, from the cargo from Poland to Denmark, almost all is transported by road. Or also the cargo from Poland or Central East European to Finland. Most of cargo is transported by road to Estonian port, to Tallinn, and then the short route from Tallinn to Helsinki. And last, fuel prices also. The higher prices, the higher freight rates, then it leads to searching for alternative ways of transport. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this interesting analysis and very detailed. I always rely on Actia Forum data for my academic analysis, also for giving students some insight into whatever happens in the market. So it's very valuable for us. Thank you so much for this presentation. I think we don't have any questions as for now, so I think we can move to the second presentation that we have online, just to make sure that the insight that we have on the market is full. So thank you very much. And I would like to ask our next panelist to present, Mr. Jörgen Nilsson of the port of Trelleborg. Will tell us about how it all goes hand in hand, the port infrastructure development, the rail access, and intermodality and sustainability. So many issues all in one, but all of them quite important for the market these days. So Jörgen, please.
Thank you very much, and I would like to welcome you to the port of Trelleborg. My name is Jörgen Nilsson, and I am the CEO of the port of Trelleborg. We are the #1 port in Scandinavia for RoRo volumes. We are serving the whole Europe with 4 destinations from Klaipeda, Swinoujscie, Rostock, and Travemünde. We are also the 2nd biggest port in Sweden if we talk about tons. And we like to put pressure on ourselves, and that is one of the reasons we always try to say that we will go for be the best RoRo port in Europe. The port in Trelleborg are in full transformation. We are preparing for new, bigger vessels. We are building 4 new berths. We rebuild 1 berth. We are building a new office, workshop, garage, and other spaces. Everything to secure a better efficiency and the best customer service in Europe. We are building new land, as you can see on the pictures, and we are doing it under full production. That is a very big challenge, I can promise you that. But we are moving the port from west to the east. We are investing in total 140 million euros, and everything will be ready at 2025. But when it comes to the berths, it will be ready at the 1st of January 2022. The port of Trelleborg is a very big port in a very small town. We are in the heart of the city, and that is one of the reasons that we have a very big environmental focus in everything we do and invest. We have invested in new vehicles powered by electricity or by HVO 100 fuel, or whatever the market can give us for the moment. But not only on vehicles, we have also invested in the port a solar cell park with 2,200 square meters. And we started that, I think it was from the 1st of September 2020. We will also, during the next year, build a couple of windmills inside the port. And we are also looking for to have a wave power solution inside the port, using the vessels going in and out and try to use that as an energy sector. We will have new vessels in the port from beginning of 2022. It's shown here as the green ships. And I really hope that the other ferry companies will come with newer vessels as soon as possible. This vessel will be powered by dual fuel, and that means that you will have diesel, of course, but also with LNG. And I think that's really good for the environment. Coming to the environment, I always talk about the importance of intermodality. I get this question quite often in different arrangements. And I always say, you shall not set different modes of transport against each other. You shall not set different modes of transport against each other. You shall use them together with sustainable focus. That's really, really important. We shall use the sea for big volumes and with reliable timetable. Road transport is flexible, and it is always the front runner to adapt new market rules. Road transport, that is a branch that you really need to understand that it is one of the biggest employer in Europe. Train is friendly to the environment. You can handle heavy goods, a lot of volumes also here, and it is a stable solution when it works. When you use transport modes with right proportion, will you be able to handle the transport chain in a sustainable way? That is why I said you need to put them together, not split them away. If you look on this picture, you can see the development of intermodal transport in the port of Trelleborg. If you look at the figures, you can see from 2015 to 2019, we had a volume between 15 to 17,000 trailers going in intermodal way. It was on a very stable, but in my view, quite low level. So 2019, we sat in the management team discussing the development within the intermodal transport. And I said, we need to stop talking. We need to do things instead. And really, what do we need to increase the volumes? We set the goal that we will reach 50,000 trailers latest 2029. So you could say 10 years from 2019. Maybe not so much, but if you look at the figures, you can understand it was quite a challenge, I would say. But once again, it's easy to set figures. It's harder to do actions. So what did we do? We took quite a heavy dialogue with our ferry companies to really discuss what do we need to do to each other. We created new routines within the production, and we really improved the IT solution and the IT infrastructure, I would say. And that made us to be possible to have higher efficiency when we work with these trailers. We also have dialogue with train operators, how to improve the volumes. What do you need? And we also have the sensitivity to the market. Also here, what do you need to grow your volumes and to have more volumes from road to train in a sustainable way? And yes, we lower the price because we have higher efficiency. Of course, we did that. 2020, despite the COVID-19 situation, our volumes grow to almost 27,000 trailers. That is an increase with 72%. And we are growing from all our routes, and that's also important. 2021, and you could see it when Monica present our figures before me, has been very good. So if we take the period from January to May this year, we have had an increase of more than 60% this year if we compare 2020. And because of that, we now forecast 38,000 trailers during 2021. And that means that we will reach the goal of 50,000 trailers a lot faster than we said 2019, that we will have 50,000 trailers 2029. I think that we maybe will have it already at 2023, 2024. But even if we reach 50,000 trailers, we need to remember that it will only be just around 25% of the expected volumes that we will have for unaccompanied trailers. And if we look on the total that we will have when we talk about both accompanied and unaccompanied trailers, we think that we will reach 1 million trucks and trailers during 2023-2024. Remember that we 2020 have 770,000 trucks and trailers. So we are expecting a very good coming years. Well, you have to learn your history to make the future is something that I always use, and this is the future. And we have divided it here with challenges and possibilities. So if we start with the challenges, I would say the capacity on the railroad is very limited. That is a problem. The train operators, and now I talk about in Sweden, maybe it is the same in Europe. I don't have the whole picture, but they have a very, very low profitability. And that is a big challenge because you need to make money to invest and improve. The railway condition in Sweden is on a very low level, and it needs urgent maintenance. And that, of course, means that if you need more maintenance, you will have traffic stoppage, and traffic stoppage means that you will have transport buyers being nervous, and they will feel that we are not reliable within that market. That is a challenge, how to fix those maintenance and still keep up the traffic. I would also say, and maybe I don't know if we have any train operators with us here today, but whatever, I would say there is a lack of innovation. You need to have more modern logistic thinking, and that's really needed as I see it. Change within this market is very difficult in general, I would say. For instance, you need 1 year advantage before you can change a timetable in Sweden. 1 year. We who works within the logistic market know that with such anticipation in an extremely fast and changing world will not survive if you don't be faster in this kind of decisions. On the other hand, I would say we have a lot of possibilities. It is very friendly to the environment, and that is good for the future and the possibilities you will have. And I'm pretty sure that when we speak a little bit less of the COVID-19 situation, we will return to the environment very, very fast. So there is a very big possibility to improve the intermodal transport. And it really improves the port's internal logistic, I would say, in many ways. You will also have better control within the port, and we secure a very good performance. That's a very good thing for the market. And when we reduce 50,000 trucks from using the port's facilities, it means lower cost within maintenance and facilities. And that you need to have in your mind when you set the price. That's really important. Train operators, customers, ports needs to use the material. And what kind of material am I talking about? I mean the wagons, the trailers, the train locomotives. You can't have that standing in a port from the early morning, from 5 o'clock in the morning, and then wait to 2000 and just doing nothing. You need to use the material 24/7 in a much more efficient way than you do today. And when you can do that, you will also make more money. So that's a really big possibility. We are happy to see that my colleagues, and there are a number of ports right now that focus more within the sustainability. However, I can promise you one thing: we will never change our goal to always create the climate smartest port in the Baltic Sea. So just give us a competition, and I think that's really good for the whole Baltic Sea, that we really focus on the environment and have the climate smartest port in the Baltic Sea. Thank you for listening to me. That was my words regarding intermodality, sustainability, and thank you for listening. And I hope I can welcome you as soon as possible to the best ro-ro port in Europe, in Trelleborg. And we are very sunny. The sun is shining also here today, as it do on the picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this presentation. It is good to take a look into those investment projects that you have in Trelleborg, but also that we can see in other ports as well. So it's quite impressive how you develop. And just out of curiosity, I would like to ask you about those sustainable investments. Do you include also the idea of onshore power for ships in your port? Because I saw the idea of the windmills, and that would mean you have the clean energy to supply for the ships. That would be great.
Yeah, we already have onshore shore power supply here in the port. We have had it for quite a long time. Unfortunately, right now, it's only Stena Line who use it. But on the other hand, I normally say that I really focus on that the vessels should only be in the port within coming in and going out as soon as possible. That is the best way for the environment as I see it. But coming back to, as you said, we are really trying now to serve the with windmills or solar cells or whatever, to try to fix our own electricity at 100%. That's our goal right now.
Yeah. Yes, that's impressive. I hope this is going to work well. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm taking a look at the chat box, but we don't have any questions as for now. So thank you very much. Just summarizing the two presentations that we had here, I would say that the perspectives are quite optimistic for rural and ferry market, I would say, and especially those investments that we see in the port. They might be a great addition to the capacity that this market has at the moment. But of course, we have to also consider the clients and their point of view. And the one thing that we did not mention here was the issue of prices, because in fact it is quite important what the level of prices would be on that market, and that is going to strongly influence the demand for the services. I'm saying this because well, I frequently travel as a tourist on a connection between Gdynia and Karlskrona, and this year I was surprised that the price for the cruise was twice as high as it was 2 years ago. So I don't know if this is just a case of this certain cruise, but maybe there is a tendency on the market to see higher prices because of what happened during the pandemic. But I think we will have a chance to ask this question to our panelists, or see it in the discussion. So maybe we will now start the discussion panel. I would like to invite all our guests today to join the discussion panel. So let me see if you are here. Mrs. Aneta Schroeder-Piernicka, Mr. Mateusz Frankiewicz, Mr. Tobias Benke, and Mr. Rafał Kwapisz. Can I see you now? I would like to see. Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Good morning.
Oh,
hello, everybody.
Good morning. It's very good to see you. Okay, so to start our discussion about the development of intermodal transportation, we are going to analyze what are the key factors that influence the market. We already saw some of the key factors that Mr. Nilsson mentioned in his presentation. He divided this into challenges and possibilities. So let's take a look at the volumes of intermodal transport and semi-trailers. They are now at the low levels. So I wonder how the ports, especially now that we have this the guest here from Gdynia and Szczecin Świnoujście. So how are the ports planning to take part in the development of this sector? So any investments, any ideas of how to influence the demand for these services? If I can have our guest from the Port of Gdynia, Mr. Mateusz, please.
So good morning once again. First of all, I would like to mention that that's my thought from a few minutes ago, that actually we perfectly fit to our today topic of this meeting. I mean, ferry and rural market. I mean, we perfectly fit with two of our quite big, huge investments. First of all is public ferry terminal that was mentioned by Monica a few minutes ago. Actually, we are pretty ready to open this infrastructure. Final finishing works are ongoing there. We are going to serve first vessel there in October this year. So it's pretty finished, and it is a super modern infrastructure with super modern ramps, super modern passenger gallery, office spaces, warehouse, and so on, ready to serve biggest ferry vessels. And what's important regarding today's panel, with intermodal infrastructure as well. There is a railway track inside the terminal, so that's one of the investments regarding today's topic. Second one is expansion of the rural infrastructure. I mean rural ramps in one of our basin. It's called Basin 5 in Port of Gdynia. And implementation of this project is important in if we are talking and thinking about rural infrastructure. It will enable to handle biggest vessels up to 240 meters long and 34 meters of their width. We are going to expand rural infrastructure with landing some part of this basin. It will increase the capacity of the rural terminals quite much. Actually, nowadays we are a day before collection feasibility study of this project, and straight after this we are going to next steps in this project, just to be ready to use this infrastructure in 2025, fully operational and fully ready to serve big rural vessels.
Yes, thank you so much. And let's take a look at the Port of Szczecin-Świnoujście and the incentives that they have in there. Mrs. Schroeder-Plemnicka, can I ask you to present the situation in Szczecin and Świnoujście?
So, good morning, everyone. So a lot of steps, I think, was already undertaken by us, especially those ones which are related with the other obligations. I mean, to support our clients with proper infrastructure. I mean, which can serve the intermodal transport. Yeah. But maybe before that, it's worth to mention that besides EU expectations, how we should switch the modality in our ports. We looked at the numbers. There was a lot of information today about the market, and we're also looking at the numbers. As you probably know, we served last year around less than 500 trucks, but trailers, it was in numbers more than 22,000. It was just unaccompanied transport. Yeah, but we are preparing ourselves right now with a huge investment on the ferry terminal, because we see that there is not only numbers, but market needs to support our clients with this intermodal service. So in 2019, we started a huge modernization on the current infrastructure by rebuilding two quays, number 5 and 6 in the port, and preparing one more quay which can in the future serve bigger vessels up to 270 meters length. But not only that, we are preparing the surface in the port area. It will be more than 37,000 square meters prepared for as a parking plots for the trailers. Additional entrance to the port, and we are going to support all the investment by the IT solutions, because as Jorgen mentioned, without that we cannot achieve a proper efficiency of that process in the port. But not only that step is undertaken, because it's an ongoing investment. It's going to be end in the last quarter of 22. But we already started our talks, commercial talks with the ship operators about how to launch the new intermodal connections via Port Świnoujście. We also started our commercial talks with the train operators, because without them it's impossible to do that. Okay, we found out also some limitations, not only on the other side of the infrastructure, because we must remember that it is just adoption our terminal to the intermodal service. That's why we also take another step how we can in the future develop the intermodal service in the port, and we are prepared to do that. After our investment, we will be able to serve 44,000 units, intermodal units per year on our ferry terminal. It's 10% of our yearly turnover, so it's a quite nice number for the start, I think. Yeah. So those talks with the ship operators and train operators already talk. We need to find the best offer for our final client, which is road forwarders. And I hope in the near future we will close that step, that we can make an offer and public the offer for the final client. Yeah, so that's it for that moment from our side. If we are talking about the development of the intermodal service in the Port of Świnoujście.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think you mentioned a very important part of these challenges that the sector is facing. I mean the railway connections. That was not the strongest, let's say, feature of intermodal transportation in Poland up till now, and I can see things are changing. So for the better, definitely. There's as I heard, there's a new service being launched between the BCT terminal in Gdynia and the port of Koper in Slovenia via Wrocław with the transshipment in Wrocław. This is Loconi and Baltic Rail engaged in this service. And as I see, it offers very attractive transit times, in fact, for the destinations around Mediterranean and also for Africa and Middle East. So I really enjoy looking at the developments in that direction. So are there any incentives from the ports to cooperate with railway operators?
I don't think so. Yeah, there are the limitations is in the railway infrastructure for right now, not the railway operators. Yeah, they are supporting us with the railway wagons, so they confirmed that they will support the future connections. But I must say that the huge limitation from the railway infrastructure. Okay, a lot of stages of the new investments on the railway connections which are leading to the Port of Świnoujście are going to be end at 23rd. So it's quite nice moment that we will start. We will put into operation our infrastructure in 2022. So just before the investments on the railway connection, our railway connections will be improved at that moment on most, I think, distances. Yeah, but still, it's there is a lot of expectations from the kind of transport. Yeah, the transit time must be very short, and because the cargo is gentle, must we say? Yeah, it's not a container box. It's a trailer, so it must be secured. So that's why the transit time must be very, very low.
Yes. Yes, of course. Thank you so much. So maybe let's see if we have a comment on those connections, railway connections from the port of Gdynia. Are there any specific?
Actually, we as a port authority, we are working constantly on doing infrastructure better. I mean, the closest infrastructure closest to the port. I mean, about the last mile closest to the port. In general, we are doing our best, and we are processing many investments regarding intermodal transportation. As you mentioned, BCT container terminal in Port of Gdynia. Actually, we finished one of the investment there. Actually, it was extension of rail access to hold this western part of the Port of Gdynia the intermodal infrastructure there was expanded and electrified. So it's again, it's really modern infrastructure there. So it's easy to send and receive trains from hinterland in general. Yeah, there are still some bottlenecks in this infrastructure inside our country, but it's getting, in my opinion, it's getting better really fast nowadays, and during last years. I'm of the opinion that the ports in general are intermodal hubs in their facilities, because all modes of transportation can be combined here in ports. I mean, trucks, trains, vessels, quite everything. So we are ready to serve different modes of transportation. And as Aneta said before, it is really gentle as well, and it's very actually sensitive. The supply chains, I mean, are quite sensitive to some external factors. I mean, for example, the Ever Given situation this year, or some pandemic situations, because it was quite challenging year. I mean, 2020, and this year again. And we can see some changes happening after this situation, the Ever Given or COVID situation in general. That the interest in intermodal connections is growing in general, just to be ready to diversify the mode of transport if something happen in the world in general. So that's it, and we are facing the growth of interest in feeder services here in Port of Gdynia as a diversification of the mode of transport.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
think the diversification is the key word at this moment as a result of the pandemics in all branches of transportation and logistics sector. Okay, so let me just ask a quick question also to Jörgen Nilsson. Jörgen, if you could comment on what is the role of railway transportation in your port, in your country, the intermodal connections with railway?
Sorry, could you repeat your question once again?
Yes, so we were talking about railway connections as in intermodal supply chains, and what is the importance of rail connections in your port in Sweden?
As I see it, it's really important to, as I said before in my presentation, to have a very good dialogue with the train operators, the owner of the cargo, and to really find solutions from different areas in Sweden. Sweden is a very long country, and I would say that we need to have very good connection to the east side, which means to Gothenburg, to Oslo. We need to have very good connection to Stockholm, Eskilstuna, and that area. But I think that you need to think out of the box. And as I said before, if you would like to use the material that normally stands for quite a long time, you should also use it to a shorter range. That means in Sweden, for instance, for 300 kilometers, that means that you should have also traffic to Jönköping, or you should maybe have it a little bit lower than Gothenburg. I think that's important. And you always have the fight between personal traffic on the railroad or the cargo traffic. And that you need to sort out from both sides. And that's why we talk with the government in Sweden about that, because everybody is focusing on getting volumes from the roads to the rails. And then I normally say, but then you need to open up the rails. Otherwise, we will go by the road. So I would say you need to combine it. Long answer to a short question. Sorry for that.
Yes, I completely agree to what you said, and I'm very looking forward to those intermodal railway connections throughout Poland, as they might be a nice sustainable solution. So I see that the importance of railways is fairly the same whenever which country you look at. It really is important. Okay, so let's introduce our other guests to our conversation, as they have been a little left out. I hope they don't mind. So let's take a look at the ferry operators. We have two guests here. Mr. Tobias Benke, if you could just tell us what the situation looks like from your point of view. What is the situation that you can observe, and what would you advise to Polish ports maybe in order to further develop intermodal transport from the ports?
Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for inviting me. Just for clarification, I'm not a ferry operator, so I'm representing the port of Lübeck here today.
Oh, okay.
And having two hats on my hat. So one is a representation of the port of Lübeck, and the other hat is that I'm leading the intermodal department at ECL, a daughter company of the port of Lübeck. If you don't mind, before I answer your question, I would like to just give two sentences more of our backgrounds and our intermodal activities to bring all of you in a better picture. I'm not going to show a big presentation or something, but if you don't mind, I would like to just share two slides with you in order to enable you to what we are doing here. Just a second. Can you already see my screen?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. Then one thing is I want to show you. Can you see the development for the intermodal figures in Lübeck? I think
not yet. Okay, now we see it. Yes.
Okay. Just to bring you in the picture about the figures in the port of Lübeck, what you can see here is the overall development of the intermodal volumes in Lübeck, meaning transported by rail. As most of you might know, the intermodal train terminal is directly located on the Ro-Ro ferry terminal Scandinavian Quay in Lübeck-Travemünde. And the figures shown here is showing the intermodal development. And you can see, starting in 2010, ongoing decrease of intermodal activities in Lübeck, even though the green share, which is the share of ECL, were already growing at this time. At this time, we were only running a train to and from Verona, our oldest intermodal product, well established. But in 2012, the port of Lübeck took the decision and ordered us to be more active as an intermodal operator. So by origin, we are a forwarding company, a subsidy of the port of Lübeck, but developed into an intermodal operator, a niche operator like Kombiverkehr, Hupac, Green Cargo are as big players today. But we are focused purely on the hinterland of the port of Lübeck. And by taking this decision and implementing new lanes, you can see the development, and even the third market, which is more or less purely Kombiverkehr and a small share of Hupac volumes, increased as well again. So competition always helps to increase the volume, even though the prices might go down a little bit, but good prices does not help if you don't have the volume. So utilization is the key for success. And you can see an ongoing good development with including some jumps in between. So always you add or stop a train shuttle service, you lose or add 10,000 units. By last year, to finalize this, we had here in Lübeck 113,000 intermodal units, where ECL had a share of 30%, and where we are quite proud of. And if you would deduct the company trains of companies like LKW Walter or something, I think our share would even like 60%. The goal, what we are doing is to make the hinterland as attractive as possible. So this is our today's network. I hope you can see the network map. Please confirm if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. So this is our today's network we are operating, and what you can see on the screen in the center, the green lanes is our core products, like said, the Verona shuttle, Lübeck-Verona. We are currently running 7 times, planning 8 departures. Ludwigshafen, we are running our own train. Besides Kombiverkehr is also offering a shuttle there. And we are running 7 times, want to increase also by 3 departures. And Duisburg, we are cooperating with Kombiverkehr. It's already 11 departures per week in direction, and we want to go increase also by 3 departures. And I think the importance is that the land side and the seaside traffic is have a positive influence on each other. So a good dance of ferry connections, by the way, Lübeck has the widest dance of ferry connections in the Baltic Sea region, is pushing an intermodal hinterland development. And on the other side, a good intermodal hinterland development is a decision driver for cargo flows if there are several options existing in the market. And as you can see by our map here, and this is what also my colleague from Port of Trelleborg underlined already, cooperation is a key factor. So let's not work against each other. Let's work jointly with the networks and join forces in order to gain such one-stop shop networks like we offer, to make intermodal supply chains easy accessible for everyone. And jointly create a better and more sustainable transport setup within Europe. So just as a short introduction, I think this might help to bring you in a better picture here.
Yes, thank you so much. I can see that we have one question coming in the chat box, so let me read this. Will the demand for rural cargo transport be so large that it will be profitable for intermodal operators to develop intermodal transport? If an external port in Gdynia is built, perhaps the current operators of container terminals will move their locations to the new built infrastructure. The question is, who will use the current intermodal infrastructure that is currently within the administrative boundaries of the BCT? So I can see that's the question for the port of Gdynia. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you for this question. So actually, yes, the works on the external port in the port of Gdynia, actually the outer port in Port of Gdynia, are fully ongoing. But still, this is a few years to be operational for this part of Port of Gdynia, this new part of Port of Gdynia. Even though during this time there is, I think there's plenty place for operators to serve new railway connections to this part of Gdynia. Even though we are for today, we are not going to close this infrastructure after opening the new part of Port of Gdynia. It will be still operational, and the trend and tendency of using railway transportation is common for different modes of transportation, for containers, for other type of goods, and it will be fully usable even after opening the new part of port, I mean outer port.
Yes, thank you for this explanation. We now know what the situation looks like in the ports, and now let's see what it really looks from the side of the ferry operator. So let me ask Mr. Rafał Kwapisz, what is your point of view, how you can comment on those issues that we mentioned here.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your kind invitation. Regular liner, RoRo, and RoPax business is what we do. This is our core business. Same goes for the other companies within the Grimaldi Group, being on the Baltic Sea, the North Sea, on the Mediterranean, or across the Atlantic. One of the biggest cargo groups that we carry on our vessels are trailers, unaccompanied trailers. And by definition, intermodality is that you take a cargo unit containing freight cargo and transport it within at least two different modes of transport. So by just simple calculation in our statistics, we know that we carry about 50% of our cargo as accompanied trailers in terms of Finland's traffics. So this is roughly 350,000 units a year. It would be, of course, much better if said unit, said trailer would arrive to the port with a train service. Unfortunately, this is, for us at least, seen only in selective ports. Especially we see that in already mentioned Lubeck Travemünde on Scandinavian Kai, where we have services from Travemünde to Finnish ports, as well to Sweden in Malmö. That is the only significant shipping line that sees cargo being delivered, I mean trailers being delivered to the port with the rail shuttle services. About 20% of our trailers are being delivered to the ports with shuttle services. The rest is arriving with road transport and with let's say the traditional mode. As for Poland, there were several studies done in order to start a north-south railway shuttle for trailers. The biggest problem always was time and money. Our service from Poland to Finland is a RoRo operator vessel. So basically about 85% of our cargo is trailers. So we see that we do intermodality right now with support of our good customers, logistic operators, with their fleet of trailers, which are obviously modern and also can be used in a shuttle train service. But unfortunately in Poland there are no existing in this, as I said, north-south corridor. All our activities in terms of Grimaldi Group and Finland has always been focused on seeing the green development, and even our latest investment program of 500 million euros as Finland's only in new 5 vessels means that we first of all look at how can we improve our offer for our customers. Our customers know best how they should run their business. We are there to support them. And the ports and the rail infrastructure should be there as well. It's very important to have an open dialogue with customers, what they need and what they can benefit from using our services.
Okay, thank you so much. If I may, I would like to ask you also just one short question. In your group, do you see what is the change in general change in prices? Is there any, in fact, because of the pandemics and because of what happens on the market, or do you maybe see that there might be some changes into the level of prices or not?
We have always tried to maintain a very market-oriented approach in terms of our pricing policy. We are in those hard times trying to support the societies by giving the essential connection between countries. In terms of Finlines, we as Finlines are provider of connection to Finland, which is in a way
I think we can't hear Mr. Klapisch at this moment. We might have lost a connection here. So maybe.
I can hear you, but I lost my video. Okay,
Yes,
now we're back.
Yes.
So I don't know which part got lost, but in Finlines, we treat our role as a supplier of connection to Finland. Finland being almost an island country in Europe, where 80% of goods coming into the country or exported are by seaports. That means that we are responsible for keeping the goods flowing. And for that reason, and many other small ones, we did not intend to increase the costs. Our aim has always, even before the pandemic, was to offer the best sustainable solution. And that is why we also constantly upgrade our fleet. That is why we build bigger vessels. Our next generation of the Eco class is going to be 35% more bigger than our biggest current Breeze class Ro-Ro vessels. And that gives us the effects of scale. And we think that it's our duty to share this benefit with our customers. We want them to grow with us because that's only the way we will grow.
Yes, okay, thank you so much. And we are running out of time. And just to summarize, I would like to ask one last question to our guest from ECL. If you could please give us a short advice. If you could, your group has very intensified intermodal connections already and lots of experience. So if you could just share some advice, what to do for us in Poland, what to do to make sure that the intermodal transportation develops fast and it's efficient.
I think there are in general several approaches which can be respected. Of course, one is the technical, meaning the infrastructure approach, having a feasible railway setup in place, rail tracks, fast tracks, especially fast tracks to and from the ports. Electrification of those tracks is important, especially also when we talk about sustainability. And then also compared to Germany and Western Europe, hinterland terminal capacity is a key factor. We see this as a most critical limiting factor for intermodal development in a short and midterm perspective. Not the rail track capacity, but I'm not so sure how the situation is in Poland, but the terminal hinterland capacity is a key factor. And there, coming to the political perspective and activities, this should be more supported. But in a European perspective, I think terminal development should be strongly supported, and railway traffic and intermodal traffic, talking about shifting from road to rail, should be strongly supported. In my opinion, I don't understand why there's just a rule allowing to build new trailers just as huckepack trailers, for example. Why are there still non-craneable trailers be produced? So the bunch of arguments which could be respected. Also, the first and last mile support by tax, or allowing platooning, having 2 trailers or 2 containers in a row on a truck head. This is a bunch of actions which can be done. And last but not least, to mention, as we are here with ports and ferry operators, actually the port capacity and the ferry capacity needs to be in place, because we are currently facing a situation, at least in Lübeck, where this is going to be a limiting factor. We are working on that it's not going to be, but let's say it's always the question of the chicken and the egg, but it shows once more that in crisis you should be you should have the courage to invest and look ahead, because after the crisis there will always be what is the word, the increasement of the economy. And once the economy is increasing, you need to be in place and not just start talking about what to do when the demand is there. So you should be prepared of the demand, let's say by railway capacities, terminal capacities, port capacities, but also ferry capacities where the ferry lines are working on. But in my case, and with a focus on Lübeck, I would have wished that some developments would have already been implemented, talking about new ships, extended port facilities and things like this. So choose your arguments. I think there are several ones where you can find yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for this nice summary and for this piece of advice from Lübeck. Thank you, Tobias. I think we are out of time, so we need to end our discussion at this point. We don't have any further questions from chat box. So thank you all so much. Thank you all panelists for joining us today and for this discussion that sets a little bit of, let's say, guideline for the development of intermodal transportation. Thank you so much. Well, we are back to Bogdan now.
Yes, Dorota, thank you very much for moderating the morning session. It was very interesting to listen, especially the panel and the arguments for development of intermodal transport in Poland when it comes to trailers, semi-trailers. As we all know, this sector is at a very minimal level in Poland. So we are looking forward for next years to start development of this sector in Poland. Well, Dorota, once again, thank you for accepting our invitation. Perfect job. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks to all speaker panelists. It was a great setup of experienced people from ports, shipping lines, intermodal operators. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. Now is a break. We will meet again at 12 o'clock sharp. And we will continue with a discussion about new fleets, new technologies, new challenges. And I will have a pleasure to moderate this part. So thank you again, and see you in a couple of minutes, or maybe a bit more, 20 minutes. We meet at 12 o'clock. Thank you, and see you. Okay, let's start our afternoon session of our Today Transport Week webinar. I have a pleasure to moderate that part, and we have three very distinguished and experienced experts, people from maritime industry, to share with us their opinion about new technology, new trends, new challenges for ports, for shipping, for technology suppliers in next decades. So I would like to invite or present our distinguished panelist, Mr. Jakob Koch-Nielsen, Head of Freight from Stena Line Group. And I hope, Jakob, you just joined us. You had some problem with timing, but
I joined you here now. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and for being with us today. I would like to present Thomas Andersson, CEO of Ports of Stockholm. Thomas, hello.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
It's important to say that there's not only one port, but Ports of Stockholm. So there are three ports in Stockholm.
Very true.
Yes, and I would like to also welcome Mr. Michael Arts, General Manager, Market Innovation from Wärtsilä. Michael, I know, and I understand you're based in Netherlands somewhere, or in
yes. Yes, I'm based in the Netherlands, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have this very good setup. Shipping line, one of the largest shipping line in Northern Europe, very well known port, Ports of Stockholm, and of course Wärtsilä, a leader, global leader in technology and provider for marine sector. So can I start with Jakob? And Jakob, I would like to ask you first question about new buildings of Stena. You are on process of construction of new ships, and if you can say a few words, what is the stage of these new buildings? And in fact, if you build new ships, you probably expect that cargo will be growing. So what are the expectations for the market in the Baltic, in the North and North Europe? You can share with us this perspective.
Yeah, I think there are different parts of the question. On the first one, how are we doing with regard to our new buildings and call it also modernizing fleet and so on? Then we're doing quite well. We are according to plan, more or less. I think the plan is not on the hour. When you talk shipbuilding, it's sort of there's a slightly different time span. So a few days or a week is not sort of considered as a deviation from plan. So I think we're well on time with our new buildings and with our upgrades or lengthening of ships that we're also in doing. So I would say we're doing well.
But how many of new ships are you recently constructing?
Forgive me, sorry. The exact number I'll have to look at, but we have taken delivery of new ships already. The E-Flexer series active on the Irish Sea or in operation on the Irish Sea. We have taken delivery of the same series, quite slightly different configuration, with charter out not by Stena Line but by Stena Ro-Ro to colleagues in the ferry sector, DFDS and Brittany. Then we have a few more in the pipeline to be delivered. Where they will operate is not confirmed yet, or not communicated at least. Then we have lengthening of the two Vicentinis down in Turkey. One is ready, you could say, and one is in the pipeline. Also more or less according to plan to go in on our Baltic route to Nynäshamn-Ventspils or Norvik-Ventspils. So I think we're a part of a call it a capacity upgrade, but also in the Baltic Sea but also modernizing the fleet to meet the future, both when it comes to sustainability and efficiencies, but also when it comes to market development. We see a strong market and a positive outlook in more or less across the board. But if we focus on the Baltic Sea, then we see a very strong market development going forward and a very positive outlook.
Yeah, that's good to hear that you are expecting a positive outlook for the freight transport in the Baltic. Yeah, it's good to know that Stena Line is expecting a good perspective for that segment. But maybe just one more clarified questions about new technologies in these new ships. So what about propulsion systems? What about, I don't know, that being ready for onshore power supply? If you can maybe give a few words about that.
Yeah, I think it's not the ships that we introduce are ready for anything, if you can call it that. What the exact fueling technologies will be is yet to be determined and can develop. So it can be sort of traditional with the finer fuel. It can be high battery hybrids. It can be other fuel technologies. It develops quite fast, and so it's yet to be decided how we will call it fuel them, and then they might start at a call it conventional setup, and then quite rapidly develop into something more sustainable, if we can use that word.
Okay, so when you are planning new ships, then you are not stick to any fixed solution.
Nope.
You're planning depending what would happen with new fuels, then you can adjust future this technology.
Absolutely.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much. Well, maybe I can turn now to Port of Stockholm, to Thomas. Thomas, you opened a new port, completely new port, I think more than a year ago. I think you also had one first anniversary recently. Probably you were expecting to have more fancy opening, but due to coronavirus, you couldn't do that. Maybe for the second anniversary, you do a big party. But how is this project? What's your experience after 1 year, and is everything working as you planned?
Well, it's true, like you say, Bogdan. It's been a very interesting year in many ways. So we tried to plan for big festivities last year, and we tried to plan for big festivities this year, but we have had to postpone them twice. So third time counts, something like that, I suppose. But when we were in March last year and the pandemic hit Sweden and the rest of the world and Europe at the hardest, the cranes just arrived. So the port wasn't ready built. And that was, of course, a moment when we felt, are we going to make this? How is it possible? Because we needed specialists, and the plan was to have the specialists installing the cranes, etc., on site. And I was really impressed by the way how Hutchison worked through this, and my team worked through this as well, making it possible to open the container terminal on May 27th last year. Alas, or despite this challenging situation that we had. So we started building the port in 2016, and we actually finalized it on time and on budget, despite the pandemic that hit us at the kind of when we were running up for the last things to do. The Ro-Ro terminal was opened in November, actually on November 9th, when Stena Flavia made birth in Stockholm Norvik port. So we were very happy, and I could hear Jacob, and I can only concur that we're very, very interested in developing the line between Stockholm Norvik port and Ventspils. It's a very nice service that we have there. but we're very happy with the results so far. We've been able to accept bigger vessels. That was part of the plan. I mean, it's a really short run into Stockholm Norvik port compared to when we accepted the container vessels in the city of Stockholm. So you save a lot of environment, you save a lot of bulk, and you save a lot of time, and it's good for everybody. It's good for us. It's good for the customers. We also see that the automation goes very well. That's of course on the part primarily when it comes down to Hutchison, automating a lot of things in Stockholm Norvik Hamn. So it's going to be very interesting to see that work going on. But then, of course, the disruptions in the container market has had an impact on business. It's both pros and cons, but the disruptions are kind of making it a bit, well, we didn't reach the goals for 2020, we didn't, but the main reason for that is that the disruptions in the container market is gigantic, as you know. We have also seen during the time we built a railway about 4 kilometers long, and we see that railway attract new business. So the multimodal work that was supposed to do is actually doing bigger work than we thought. So all in all, we are happy with what we've seen so far. And looking forward to the future. It's a brand new port, and it's high tech, and well, it's good in so many ways.
Yes, thank you. Personally, I would love to visit the port, and I hope I can do it within next month, maybe. But as I said, Norvik is not the only port in the area of Stockholm, and I presume you are also developing 2 other facilities, and there are quite many lines, ro-ro ferry lines from this port. So you can also say a few words about the other ports you are having.
Well, I think that what we see when our customers, and a lot of them are looking into what kind of vessels are we going to use and investing in new vessels, that of course has a huge impact on the ports and the port infrastructure. And we always try to accommodate that. I mean, just today, actually, this morning, we had a board meeting, and the board accepted our suggestion into investing in new facilities in Norvik to be able to accept the new vessels that Stena will be introducing. So it's a constant thing that we work with. The same goes for the northern port, Kapellskär, that we have, where we are investing in both onshore power supply and outer mooring in order to make it possible for Finnlines to introduce new ships between Nordendal and Kapellskär. So we're doing that constantly. Here in Stockholm, where the main focus, apart from always keeping the quays up to date, because that's a big and huge chunk for the ports. That's big investments that we constantly need to do. Apart from that, we are investing in onshore power supply in the city of Stockholm as well. And that is primarily focused on the cruise ships then in a European Union funded project with other ports like Copenhagen and Rostock and Helsinki. The project in Kapellskär that we have with for the Finnlines service, it's a joint project with Nordendal on the Finnish side. So it's a constant thing, but we're doing other things as well, like investing in solar panels, putting them on the roofs. So we are having a premiere during July, where we're going to premiere the solar panels in Stockholm Norvik Port, which will be the ones with the highest efficiency in Sweden, actually.
Okay. Yes, thank you for this. And maybe just coming back to Port of Norvik for a while. You already mentioned that you are investing a lot in onshore power supply, in automatic mooring and solar power. But what did the technologies have been also applied, or new solutions in Port of Norvik? I know that, for example, there is a first inline barge sailing from Norway to the hinterland. So this is also quite a new for Sweden. So if you can a bit elaborate, what new technologies, new solutions, new concepts have you applied in the port of Norwich port?
Well, apart from what you mentioned now, I'd say that the most important thing that we are doing is that we are constantly trying to work with our customers to find solutions that suits us both. We're really keen on being early adopters as possible as it can be. I mean, you need to assess, of course, everything that when you try to adopt new technologies, you need to assess them, and there are a lot of ideas out there. But I think one idea that's out there that we need to look into is hydrogen. The other thing is to make sure that the ports can work as a hub in the transport system, and in order to do that, we need to secure the electricity that we have in the ports. So we have enough electricity in the ports in order to do the job that we need to do. But there are so many different ways of looking at this issue. I think another thing that we are talking about is noise and how to handle noise, because ports are very, very often close to cities or well, we have neighbors, and we focus a lot of the greenhouse gases, but we should also focus on other things that influences the environment that we're in. So noise is another thing that we are looking into. How can we do that? It's of course very important in Nynäshamn. It's very important in Stockholm to do that. And then how can we alleviate the roads, as you mentioned? And then the German shipper Damen started just a week or two ago, going as an inline waterway then service, the first in Sweden ever, going from Stockholm Norwich port to Västerås, and then going into the Lake Mälaren. And one of these barges can take away 200 trucks from the road. So that's an important way of how can we work things out to use the waterways more. Yes,
thank you, Thomas. I think it's wise to underline that when it comes to impact of the ports for environment, I think in many last years we used to focus on a local impact. Now, for some years, we talk about climate, which is a global challenge. But again, we have to at the same time remember of the local impact, not forget about noise or local pollution or other impacts. So it's good that you mentioned that aspect as well. Okay, thank you very much. And let's now go to Michael. Michael, you work in a big company, global company, and big brand name for marine application, but also for ports. And you are a general manager for market innovation. So if you could share with us what are the areas of innovation and new technology development in Wärtsilä? What is the driving force now that you are working with? And of course, you are a leader, so you are not only working for yourself, but you're also kind of making the trends for the industry. So please share us this new work that you are now carrying out.
Yeah. Yes, Bogdan, thank you for having me here today in the webinar, and I can fully underline what Thomas just brought up on the local emissions, that should stay on the radar as well. It's really important to keep that in mind. And the way we look at things are we have two types of emissions: the local emissions, clean air, very important for coastal areas and ports and because there are places where a lot of people live. This is about NOx emissions, SOx emissions, particulates. It's really important because that's the clean air that we all breathe. And then the second one, that's the global emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, basically. It doesn't matter where these are emitted. They have a global effect, global warming, climate change. That is what is now really in the attention the last couple of years, and will be for the coming years. We have this week, actually tomorrow, IMO starting on MEPC 76, in which they will take further decisions on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. The next target that is basically set is the 40% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions of shipping in 2030, based on the 2008 level. And what IMO will discuss and partially decide on is how will that trajectory in the coming years look like? What are the short-term measures that are going to be implemented? Most probably effective from 2023, and that will have a significant impact on basically all the ships out there. And then the further objective, that is the 2050 target. Here we are speaking about 50% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions of the whole of shipping. But as we know that shipping is a growing industry, there will be more ships in 2050. That probably means that on an individual ship level, we are speaking about a 75% reduction of carbon emissions or more. And I think that if we look at the technology developments, then it is clear that the 2030 target, 40% reduction compared to 2008, that is something that with, let's say the best available technology today is within reach, but the 2050 target, so individual ships, reduction of 75% or more carbon emissions, for that we will need a new set of technology and basically a new set of fuels, which are not really existing today. Under development, yes, and Wärtsilä is also investing a lot of effort and money into that to prepare ourselves for that. But those are kind of the technology drivers, the policy drivers behind decarbonization. And next to that, we see that the EU in July is going to take decisions on the Fit for 55 program, which will most probably include shipping into the emission trading system. So if there will come a carbon tax on emissions of CO2, that will clearly have a big impact on, let's say, initiating ships to reduce their carbon emissions by sailing more efficiently or an early uptake of different fuels. And maybe another thing to highlight here is that a week ago, there was a big court case here in the Netherlands where Shell, as a big oil company, global company, was taken to court by a group of environmentalists, and they actually won. And the court ruled that Shell needs to step up their decarbonization targets significantly. Probably Shell is going into appeal to a higher court, and we have to see what comes out of that then. And it doesn't matter on which side of the coin that you are, the signal is crystal clear that all, let's say, parts of society are calling for change now, and this change is going to come. That's absolutely certain. And then if we look at reduction of carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, in Wärtsilä, we kind of see that there are four main elements to do that. The first one is the smart use of data to optimize the routing from ships going from A to B. So using the most efficient sailing routes, but also using making sure that we have just-in-time arrival of ships. That also calls for a ship-to-port integration. That's kind of the lowest hanging fruit when you think about reduction of carbon emissions. The second step is to look at the ship and to look at how much energy is the ship consuming. So here we speak about most efficient propeller designs, most efficient hull lines, but also, for example, air lubrication, which is minimizing the friction of the ship going through the water, all kind of energy saving devices. So when I have taken these first two steps, then I've minimized the amount of energy that the ship needs to go from A to B. The third area to look at is what are the available energy sources or power sources I have available on board. There will be the internal combustion engine, but we do see that there is certainly an uptake of hybrid solutions, the use of battery power on board of vessels, and Thomas already brought up shore power. Shore power connection is going to play an important role in the future to decarbonize the whole of shipping. But we will also probably see an uptake of fuel cells. So what is the most ideal mix of power sources I will have on board, and using them in the most efficient way? And then the last step, that will be about future fuels with lower carbon emissions or even zero carbon emissions, and what is the most efficient combustion technology to use these fuels. So kind of 4 areas to consider: use of data, efficient ships, a mix of power sources, hybrid technology, and future fuels.
Thank you very much for this clear point and giving us these 4 areas for you to work with as the global supplier for marine industry. Yes, okay, that's quite clear. But imagine, if you look at the Baltic, there are so many ferry RoPax connections across the Baltic. And I remember 10 years ago when we started to talk about LNG as a potential fuel for shipping, then there was some development, and now we have a few more ships sailing with LNG in the Baltic, but the number are not very high still. So I know it's very difficult to say, but if you could maybe clarify a bit, are you expecting that in the future such ferries would be fueled by I don't know, hydrogen, or maybe it's too long distance to be fueled by hydrogen or ammonium, or maybe some other technology? There are also methanol, and there are some examples in Stena Line of ships fueled by ethanol. So what the propulsion system could be in the future for our Baltic intra-trade ships?
Yeah, when it comes to these future fuels, then I can clearly say that Wärtsilä is deeply investigating the 4 alternative fuels that are on the radar in the maritime world. The first one is LNG, second one is methanol, we have ammonia, and we have hydrogen. Those are kind of the 4 candidates which, as far as we can foresee now, all have reasons of existence. And there is not one shipping market out there. There are different markets. Ferry and short sea shipping is a different market than ocean-going container liners, and bulkers kind of need another type of solution. There are pros and cons on all these fuels out there. Just to sketch a little bit how that looks, LNG is, we have been working with LNG now for 20 years. It is roughly, you could say, 1% of the global fuel bill. There are challenges with LNG as it needs cryogenic storage, minus 150 degrees below zero, but we have mastered that technology with good developments, but it has taken a long time before infrastructure is being built up. However, now we are roughly at the point that there are 200 LNG ships operating, but there are 300 ships on order capable of running with LNG. We do see that there is an uptake, for example, on large merchant vessels for LNG. The MSC has ordered big container vessels on LNG. Hapag-Lloyd, we see that CMA CGM clearly has went in that direction. Also, the amount of bunkering infrastructure for LNG is going to double in the coming years. So that is now, let's say, an acceleration on the use of LNG, and it gives you on certain aspects a really good step forward. It is available on scale. the technology to handle it is in place and under control. Anti-bunkering infrastructure is rapidly developing, and on price level, it has been a very stable price on LNG. However, it is still a fossil fuel. There is still carbon emission related to that, and in recent months or year, methane slip has also come more profound on the radar. We should keep in mind that methane slip was not, let's say, the focal point of introducing LNG 20 years ago when that was brought into the market, into the marine world as a fuel. It was to find an alternative for sulfur fuel, so HFO, and that has been very successful. So in the later engine generations, you see that methane slip has been reduced significantly compared to the older LNG engines. But it is on the radar, and there is attention for it, and that is justified. So LNG is clearly something that has reasons for existence. But if we go, for example, to methanol, in 2015, we worked with Stena on the Stena Germanica to convert that ship to run on methanol. That has been really a success. The experience we have built up together with Stena is excellent with that. But green methanol available at scale is not there today. There are also other industry actors such as Maersk that have also publicly supported the use of methanol in shipping. So if let's say the big industry players such as Stena, such as Maersk are going for methanol, and then of course bunkering will become available, then the business case is kind of complete. And then also we are ready to move forward with engines running on other engines running on methanol. So those are two good candidates. If we look further into the distance, then there will come a point when we will run with synthetic fuel. So that is green electricity. We produce hydrogen with that, and then either use that hydrogen directly, or you convert it to another fuel, and then ammonia also comes into play. Ammonia is NH3, it's carbon-free fuel. You produce it basically mixing or combining hydrogen with nitrogen, and nitrogen is available in air and in abundance. So from a synthetic fuel perspective, that could be an attractive option as well. Only ammonia is a very toxic substance. There still is a lot of development needed on safety aspects, etc. However, this year in 2021, we will be the first engine manufacturer that will have an engine running on ammonia, a marine engine running on ammonia. So we do see that there is a future for ammonia as well. You can debate if that will be on passenger vessels, ferries, for example, where a lot of passengers are on board, given the fact that ammonia is a highly toxic substance. So probably merchant ships with fewer crew on board will be, let's say, a more logic place to start there. And then the last fuel, hydrogen, that's of course, let's say, also something where a lot of attention is for, and we have already shown the capability to mix 25% of hydrogen inside our dual fuel engines, inside our LNG fueled engines, and we are going to scale that up. Only for hydrogen, the limitation there is the storage and handling. It takes up so much space on board to store hydrogen, even in a liquid form, that to make that a substantial fuel for deep sea shipping, that's going to be a challenge. We probably will see that more on shorter routes where long endurance is not a necessity. Yeah.
Michael, thank you very much. I think it's a very well description of potential fuels for shipping, and also for, well, I hope for some of the Baltic ships sailing here in the region. This completes the first round of questions. So let's go on. And I have questions now first to Jakob and then to Thomas. The climate policies and greenhouse gas emissions reductions are recently the main targets, but also challenges being faced by companies and businesses. But global actions are the only way to, in fact, to combat with the climate change. So I have a question. What is your company policy and goals toward climate change? And do you see any expectations from your clients? For example, I know that Stena is carrying out a lot of IKEA products, and what's the IKEA policy towards the shipping industry? So if you could respond to that two questions, please, Jakob first.
Yeah, I'll try. It's a quite big question, and I guess there are many answers to it. And I think whereas we obviously focus a lot on greenhouse gases and emissions and so on, then I think there are other aspects to the sustainability agenda than those components. In shipping, for example, is quite a conservative setup. So how do we balance male versus female, working with diversity and inclusivity and so on, or equality is also aspects we have high on the agenda. So it's not just the green aspects, but if we go back to the green aspects, then I think there's no single clear answer or no silver bullet for how to move forward here. I think it's probably push and pull from us in the shipping sector to and with our customers. The authorities or rules and regulators also play an important role in order sort of to push this sector forward at the same pace. Because I think on the one side, then we have the how should I say, the customers who don't want to pay or contribute. If I can be a little bit harsh on that, it's not the consumers that's the problem, because the extra cost for a liter of milk or a bottle of wine or a pair of jeans is nothing when you break it down to a per unit level. And so that's not the problem. The problem is to get the effects all the way out through the supply chain. So that's something we are working with. Then we are working with creating greener products that could be, for example, moving from road to rail and then on to sea. So intermodal solutions is very high on our agenda from a sustainability aspect, but it actually also fits very well into an efficiency aspect of the transportation chain. So we are focusing very much on developing intermodal solutions and offering that to our customers combined with ferry. Then we have a number of other aspects. The methanol project, what was mentioned, we have actually had the first shore power installation on our ships back in the 1990, so it's nothing new for us, and that's quite logical and quite natural to tap into that. We have battery hybrids on our some ships. We installed some of that back in 2018. We have artificial intelligence fuel pilot systems on our ships to optimize and run the ships in the most friendly way. If we look at what are our targets and so on, we have set a target to reduce our carbon emissions by 30% by 2030. So it's not far away. We have a live battery project, Stena Electra, we call it, to run a ferry purely on battery powered energy by not so far out in the future. I think it's also 2030, but most likely earlier. And so that's not going from sort of ambition to actually real life. And then we sort of put all this into what we call a decade of action. So it will not be done in a single year. It will not be done by a single action item. A lot of things has to go into it in order to deliver on the ambitions we have set.
Yes, Jakob, thank you very much. I think you underlined one very important issue here, that even if you are planning, if you are a leader in greening the transport, at the end you have to confront your strategy with the market, and the question is whether everybody is really ready to pay for green solutions. So this is one of the challenges that the company have to face.
Yeah, I think we there's no doubt that we have to transform our company, but also the shipping sector and the transport industry at large to a much greener and ultimately a zero emission or carbon free, carbon neutral industry. But along the way, there are quite heavy investments and trial and error or research and development to be made. And I think we need to take our share. Governments or rules and regulators take their share, not by paying as such, but regulating so that it push the industry forward at a common pace. But also I think customers take their share. And on that note, we are right now confronted with, yes, everybody wants it, but nobody wants to pay. And I think that's a challenge that we have. Obviously, we need to be perhaps more convincing, you could say, but I think everybody has to chip in. And that is blue chip companies as well as the smaller ones. You mentioned one name, and there could be others. I'll not point out anybody, but we're all part of it. And it's not us as consumers that's the problem, because we will never see it on the product price, because it will become so small when you break it out on a per unit item.
Yes, thank you. I think just before pandemic, I saw at the aviation sector that you can even buy. You were able to buy a bit higher ticket than you included in your ticket biofuels. But I didn't see the shares of this this more expensive shares in the total.
No, and we're also working on such call it products and offering choices to our customers that they can call it pay more and participate in greener fuel solutions and developing more. There's a supply and demand here. If we don't buy green fuels, then nobody will supply them, as also mentioned before here. So we need to boost the demand for green fuel solutions. So that's one aspect of offering more choice to our customers. We will also launch that we will supply our customers with the CO2 footprint on their business with us, so they can see, okay, how is it, how does it develop, and pull their own statistics. So that will come here during the autumn.
Yeah.
So it's very high on the agenda.
Thank you. It's a very interesting discussion. Let's continue with Thomas. And Thomas, the same questions goes to you. What's your company policy and goals when it comes to climate? And how is the way you work with your clients? Are you pushing your clients to green solution, or you rather maybe seeing that your clients pushing you to more green solutions? So if you can elaborate on that, please.
It goes both ways, of course. I think we're doing a push and pull together. But before that, I'd say when we're exiting the pandemic now, I think that the return of the sustainability issue will come back. I fully agree with what Jakob started saying, that sustainability it's more than just handling one thing. It's about multiple different things that we need to handle at the same time. The pandemic, I believe, has shown that when the entire world decides upon solving a problem, we can solve the problem fairly quickly. I don't think many of us thought that we'd be injected by vaccines so quickly. And I think the longer that we let the sustainability debate go on, the closer we'll come to a point where the resources that we need to use has to be focused on these issues. And I'd say that, I mean, looking back 10 years, we've come a long way, where we have solutions now that weren't able 10 years ago. And we'll I mean, looking back 10 years from now, we'll be a long way on the road, I think. So I'm positive and optimistic, and by part that is that perhaps the pandemic will make us join forces and work together to solve the problem that is ours together. What we try to do is that we try to incentivize our customers to, for instance, rebuild their ships for onshore power supply. So we have a 100,000 euro incentive that we hand out to our customers when they rebuild a ship for onshore power supply. But also our tariffs are related to incentivizing clients to use other sources of more greener fuels. So we work in different ways from our perspective how to do it. I mean, the problem is, of course, that our own organization's impact in the environment is looking at the wider scale fairly small, but we of course need to work with our own organization, and that's what we do as well. So our ambition is now that when it comes down to our own organization and trucks and things that we're working with, by 2025 they're supposed to be fossil free, and by 2030 the entire organization is supposed to be fossil free. And that's aligned with what I think many of our customers are as well.
Yes, I think you can see that more and more ports are declaring that they would become neutral free port by their own activity by the year 2025 or 30. But you can see these trends on the port sector recently. Okay, so maybe I can go now to Michael with the question, because we discussed how the leaders should define their strategy, leaders like Stena and Stockholm. But Michael, when you talk with your clients like ship owners, are they ready to pay a bit more for new technology, for new engines? You said that you have your own engine for methanol shortly. More because it will emit less CO2. Are they? I mean, if the sector is ready to pay a bit more to become more greener? It's a very basic question, but well, let's start from the basic.
Yeah, I think that sustainability and decarbonization has now taken such a center stage here in the maritime world, actually in all of society, but certainly also in the maritime world, that all professional shipping companies are preparing themselves for this. It has been 15 years ago since Al Gore launched his video, An Inconvenient Truth, and not much has happened in the years afterwards. It is actually the last couple of years that we see that this debate and the attention has really accelerated. You see Poseidon principles coming up, where the ship financiers are committing themselves towards the decarbonization targets that are set. You see sea cargo charters, so large cargo owners also committing themselves to that. So from all kind of industry actors, the pressure is now on. And in our meetings with ship owners, we clearly see that they are really exploring the technology options, preparing themselves for fuel flexibility, as we will be going towards a future where there will be different fuels in the market. And we are working with all our customers on these things. This is also partially my role of, let's say, helping clients transition through this through this period and showing them the consequences of certain choices. And let's say waiting for a silver bullet solution is also a choice of not acting today often, and we simply cannot afford that anymore. So yeah, this subject is really accelerating now, and yeah, but what I mentioned, I see that all professional ship owners are deeply investigating that, how they can make their ships run more efficient. We already touched on the fuels, that will be a wide range of fuels, but making a ship run more efficient, so minimizing the energy consumption of a ship, that is kind of a safe investment for ship owners to do, and there is a lot of interest in that. And Wärtsilä also has this kind of solutions with EnergoFlow and EnergoProfin, which reduce the energy consumption of ships, but also this air lubrication. We have a partnership with Silverstream. The use of wind power has received a lot of attention. We have a partnership with Enemoy, so integrating these solutions in existing and also in new building ships is one of the steps that ship owners are taking to reduce their emissions and make sure that they are as future ready as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. And maybe the last question, because we are running a bit out of time, but Michael, what the ships 20, 30 years from now will look like? We tend to talk a lot about the fuels, but there are other trends like automated ships, digital ships, smooth connections with the ship and the ports. So yeah. If you can give us a few a few hints about the future ships, how they will look like in next decade.
Yeah, I think that what I mentioned in the beginning, the smart use of data to operate ships, that will accelerate further, and that will also be used in autonomous shipping. If we will see true autonomous shipping without any captain on board, I think that's perhaps difficult to say, and maybe that's not needed, but further use of data to optimize the operations of ships and let them control the processes on board of ships, I do think that is going to accelerate in the years to come. It is clear that what the fuel of the future will be, that is not clear, but it will be clear that we will start paying for carbon emissions sooner or later, and that all those fuels that I just mentioned, they will be much more expensive than what we are used to today. So minimizing the emissions of ships, that is a safe bet. And I think that we will also see more ships with dual fuel technology. So the capability to run on one of the future fuels, whether that's LNG or methanol or ammonia, including a conventional fuel, because we also see that industry changes are not done overnight. You're looking at a longer period, easily 10 or more years, in which infrastructure is building up, but it simply takes time. And of course, you have ships that operate on a fixed route. For them, it is quicker to implement a different fuel type, but you also have a lot of ships that operate worldwide, and for them, dual fuel technology will be essential to navigate in let's say the coming 20 years from now. Those are and kind of the advice to ship owners. They need to select a fuel that works for them today, but make sure that they are as fuel flexible to also operate when the landscape of fuels is going to change. And we see that LNG is offering a good, let's say, stepping stone. It's still a fossil fuel, but just to bring that up, Gotland is a big ferry operator, of course, in the Baltic. They are mixing fossil LNG with bio-LNG, and by that, bio-LNG is a carbon neutral fuel, and by that they are already implementing decarbonization today. And this is something that perhaps also deserves more attention, because it is something that could be implemented by any LNG operated ship today. So this is something that is available today if owners are willing to implement it.
Thank you. Jakob, can you give us your view on future ships? I know that Stena is not now deciding what the future fuel will be, but what about automation, digitalization, all these processes? What do you also expect from the port sector in the future when you will build new ships? New ships probably also means larger ships, so efficiency at the port sector must be also increased. So if you can give us a few opinions about that.
Yeah, well, again, also quite an open question. I think for what we see in the foreseeable future is very much centered around propulsion systems and fuel types and so on, battery and whatever it could be. We've talked about that here, so that's one aspect of it. Then there's no doubt that digitalization will be a big component in not just the ship operation, also port operation, interaction with customers, to take out, call it waste in the operation, the ship operation, the port operation, and our customers' supply chain, so that we, from that angle, become much more efficient. And as mentioned, we have artificial intelligence already now on board ships to operate them as efficient as possible. Then I think we will, and we partly see that also, a shift from driver accompanied to more unaccompanied freight. I think that will influence the ship's configurations going forward. Varies by routes and markets, of course, but we are not seeing an influx of drivers. On the contrary, and a reduction of drivers across Europe. It's getting, how should I say, more difficult to run trucks, cabotage rules and so on, which is all, and mobility package, all fine. So I think we will see a change in the balance between accompanied and unaccompanied volumes, which of course also will impact not only ships but also port operations, space, and so on. So I think those are some of the items I would highlight. Whether we have unmanned ships and so on, I'll leave for others to speculate in.
Yes, Michael, thank you. And I think that the problem with drivers and this tendency is also a very recent problem for Poland as a market. We can see from one hand, Poland is one of the largest truck driver market in Europe, but due to some policies, we can also see that the numbers of drivers are still too low in Poland. Thomas, the same question to you. How do you see the future, and what's the role of port should be in this development?
I think, well, as Michael talked about the mix of power sources, I believe that as well. We're going to see a mix of power sources, and for that we need to make investments so that we can bunker, have you LBG or LNG or whatever, and that's of course a lot of investments that we need to do. And I like the example of Gotlandsbolaget going between Nynäshamn and Visby, because there we are preparing for bunkering electricity and bunkering gas as well. Well, the gas bunkering is already done, and the electricity, the OPS, will be finalized here in a couple of weeks. So of course, for us, for a port, we need to meet the different demands that our clients will have in a cost-effective and wise way. But we also need to at the same time make it possible to operate in the environment. So it's not enough looking at what we do emissions to the air. We need to take care of black water and gray water. We need to reduce the noise. We need to work with those questions as well, because if we do that, then the space that we need to do the transportation, we can sustain that. But at the same time, we need to find solutions where the space that we need for operations on land, connecting sea and land, that could perhaps be minimized with more efficient ways of coming to the port. That you have you drive on the boat when you come to the port instead of coming to the port and then wait for the boat to come.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I think we have to finalize our session. I have to say that it is a very interesting discussion we had, and it's a really a learning discussion for me. I learned quite a lot, and I very like a very pragmatic approach from Jakob. He is running the business. I understand that Stena has to sell the product to the client. So, of course, from one hand, we have to look at the bright green future, but as a business, you have to also confront this with the market. But it was very interesting to hear the development from Wärtsilä, what they are working with, what are the main field for the development of new technologies for shipping, for ships, and also great contribution from Thomas. So thank you all. I won't give any short conclusions. I only can say that this development will continue, of course, and maybe it is very interesting that there is no one fuel, one solution for greener future. So there is a work for Wärtsilä to tackle many of these questions, and also for business players to choose their own way, also for the ports. So I hope it was also interesting for our audience to listen so much experienced experts. Thank you for your time. We will continue with such webinars, but hoping seminars and conferences in the future. So I hope we can meet again sometimes physically. Since that, I wish you all the best, nice holidays, all the best with the vaccination, and stay healthy. See you around. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.